A trembling hand grips the armrest of a wheelchair as lightning flashes across the glass skyline. A billionaire once feared by all, now powerless and alone. The morning sun slipped through the towering windows of the city's most powerful corporate headquarters, casting streaks of light on cold marble floors. The building hummed with efficiency, assistants clicking on heels, phones ringing, deals closing. And somewhere at the top, behind layers of glass and guarded silence, sat a man who once controlled it all. Richard Hale, a billionaire CEO known for his ruthless precision and unshakable command, was now a shadow of the empire he had built. Once feared in boardrooms, he now sat in a wheelchair, confined to a life where power no longer obeyed his will. The world that once bowed to him had grown distant. His illness, an unexpected spinal condition, had not only taken his ability to walk, but stripped him of the illusion of control. The walls of his luxury penthouse, once filled with the sound of strategy meetings and fine laughter, now echoed with quiet emptiness. His friends had faded into the background. Investors avoided his calls, and even his family's visits had become formal gestures rather than moments of warmth. Richard's fortune could buy him care, but not compassion. His empire remained vast, yet his world felt smaller than ever. Across town, life moved differently. In a modest neighborhood, a man named Marcus Turner was preparing for another day that began before sunrise. A single father of a 7-year-old daughter named Lila, Marcus had learned to turn hardship into rhythm. His mornings were filled with purpose, the careful folding of her daughter's school uniform, the quick packing of her lunch, the gentle reminders to smile through the day. Marcus worked 2 jobs, one as a janitor in a hospital and another as a weekend driver for a private care agency. He rarely slept more than a few hours, yet his eyes always held warmth. Life had not been kind to him, but he had made a promise to be kind to life. Their worlds were destined to collide, though neither could have predicted how. When Marcus received a late-night call from the agency about a new client, an elderly man who needed round-the-clock assistance, he accepted immediately. The pay was better, and he hoped it would help cover Lila's school tuition. He didn't know that the man he was about to serve was Richard Hale, the very CEO whose company once rejected his job application without even reading his resume. The first time Marcus entered the penthouse, the atmosphere felt colder than marble itself. Every surface gleamed with luxury, yet the air carried the weight of loneliness. Richard sat by the window, motionless, watching the city he once commanded. His eyes barely acknowledged Marcus. Most caregivers never lasted long here. The billionaire's temper, pride, and isolation had driven away many before. But Marcus was different. He didn't see a CEO in decline. He saw a human being trying to hold on to what remained of his dignity. Days turned into weeks. Marcus performed his duties quietly, helping with meals, managing medication, keeping the space tidy. He never asked for gratitude. He simply did what needed to be done. Over time, his presence became part of the quiet rhythm of the penthouse. He brought small touches of life into the sterile world, a warm cup of coffee left near the window, a soft hum of music while cleaning, fresh air from open curtains. The apartment, once suffocating in silence, began to breathe again. Richard didn't understand it at first. He wasn't used to kindness without motive. Every gesture in his past life was transactional. But Marcus's steady patience began to disarm him. The billionaire who once commanded thousands of employees now relied on a man society often overlooked. It was a strange reversal of fate, a test of humanity on both sides. Though Richard rarely spoke, he observed everything. The care, the humility, the quiet strength. He began to see something he hadn't seen in years: integrity without price. One stormy evening, while the city roared with thunder, the lights in the penthouse went out. Marcus calmly found candles and lit them across the room. The soft glow revealed more than the faces of two men. It revealed the truth of contrast. One had everything and lost it all. The other had nothing, yet carried peace. That night, something in Richard began to shift. The walls of pride that had guarded his heart for years started to crack. In the following days, Marcus's daughter Lila occasionally stopped by after school. Her laughter filled the air like sunlight. She treated Richard with simple kindness, asking innocent questions about the world from the window view. For the first time in years, Richard found himself smiling. The sight of a father and daughter sharing small moments of joy stirred something in him he thought was long buried. His own children had grown distant, their love buried beneath inheritance papers and boardroom tension. But Lila's purity reminded him of what he had lost long before his legs failed: connection. Marcus never preached, never spoke of hardship, but his actions told a story louder than any words could. He took care of Richard, not out of obligation, but out of principle. Each day he taught the old CEO something new, not through lectures, but through example. Patience, gratitude, the quiet dignity of labor. Richard began to see his own life mirrored in the humility of this man who refused to break under the weight of circumstance. Weeks passed into months, and Richard's health began to improve slightly. The doctors credited medication, but Marcus knew better. Healing had less to do with the body and more to do with the soul. Richard began to participate in small tasks, slowly regaining confidence. When he failed, Marcus didn't rush to help. He stood close, letting him try again. That subtle encouragement restored more than muscles. It restored purpose. One afternoon, while Marcus was helping Richard with therapy, an unexpected visitor arrived: the board of directors from Richard's company. They had come to discuss finalizing the transfer of control. Once Richard's presence commanded silence, now they spoke over him, as if he wasn't there. For a moment, the humiliation returned. The man who once inspired fear now felt invisible. But Marcus stood behind him, his calm energy grounding the moment. He reminded Richard, without words, that dignity doesn't come from status. It comes from self-worth. The meeting ended coldly, but something inside Richard reignited. That night, he asked Marcus to help him write one final letter to his company. It wasn't a demand or a farewell. It was a reflection. He wrote about leadership, about empathy, about the value of people over profit. He admitted his failures, not in management, but in humanity. Marcus didn't know it then, but that letter would circulate across the corporate world weeks later, becoming a manifesto that reshaped the company's culture entirely. By winter, the bond between the two men had become unbreakable. What began as a job had turned into a friendship. Richard found in Marcus what he never found among billionaires: authenticity. In return, Marcus found in Richard something he hadn't expected: redemption for a man who finally saw the world beyond his own reflection. But life, unpredictable as ever, wasn't done teaching lessons. One morning, Marcus received news that Lila had been diagnosed with a serious illness. The world that had already tested him now pushed him toward breaking point. Medical bills piled up, shifts were missed, and the smile that once filled rooms began to fade. When Richard learned the truth, he was silent for a long time. The man who once believed money could buy everything now saw a chance to use it for something truly meaningful. Without a word, Richard arranged for the best treatment possible, covering every cost anonymously. Marcus discovered the truth weeks later, not through a receipt,
but through a simple note left on the kitchen counter. It said nothing about charity, only gratitude. The message was clear. You helped me walk again. Now let me help you keep walking. Months passed, and Lila recovered beautifully. The bond between the two families deepened beyond circumstance. Richard began mentoring her, sharing lessons not about business, but about resilience, leadership, and kindness. The old man who once measured life in profit now measured it in people. As spring returned, Richard's health reached a point of stability. He could move short distances with support, his spirit renewed. The transformation wasn't just physical, it was profound. He no longer viewed his wheelchair as a prison, but as a reminder of grace. Marcus continued to work with him, not as an employee, but as